A very good morning, student. This is the lecture of object oriented programming using C++, and at the last session we have started our second chapter, that is classes and objects. So in a previous session we have studied the introduction, the specifying of class, declaration of class, what is object, how to create object, and access specifiers, that is visibility modes in C++. In the today's session we will see the next point, that is defining data members and member function. So see here, in C++, the variables and functions declared within the curly braces are collectively known as members of the class. Means when we declare any class, first we have to write the class name, and after that open curly bracket, and into that bracket we can declare variable as well as function also. So these collectively known as the members. The variables declared in the class are known as the data members, and the function which are declared in the class are known as a member function. So data members variable are of any data type or object of other class. Means what? When we declare variables into the class, then that may be any data type. Means what? Any basic data type, that is integer, character, float. Also they can the user defined data type or derived data types or object of other class. Only the member functions, see here, only the member function can have access to the private data members and private functions. So see here the definition, that is class name, private area. In private accessibility mode we can declare the data members as well as function members, that is functions. Also in public area, data members and function. So see here, only the function members of the same class can access to the data members. Here function member of private is also access to the data members, and functions which are declared into the public area can also access the data members. Again, these function members can access the data members which are present in a public area. But see here, private data is only accessible for the public area of the same class. But this public area, that is public accessibility modes, data members and variables, can be accessed from the outside of that class also. So this is the figure of data member and member function of a class in C++. So by default all members of a class are private. So all these members are the private members of the class. Member function of a class are defined in the following two ways. So how to define that? It is a declaration of function. So how to define the functions? There are two ways. We can define the function inside the class definition or outside the class. So let me see the how to declare functions or how to define a functions inside the class and outside the class. Before that, try to understand this figure, that is a private member or private members of the class cannot be accessible from outside the members of outside the class. These members are only accessible for the the data members of the same class. See here how to define the functions inside the class definition. So a member function of a class can also be defined inside the class. The functions which are defined inside the class are similar to normal functions and they are handled automatically. When a function is defined inside a class, it is treated as a inline function. Now see the syntax. Class name. Here class is a keyword, class name is any identifier. Now access specifier, here we can write the private, public or protected data members, and here now again access specifier, Now this is the syntax of how to define a function inside the class definition. So return type, that may be a void, mostly it is a void, or integer, float, character, okay, any data type. Then function name and list of arguments. So this list of argument is optional. We can pass the argument from the function, or that is, it is a optional. Okay, so body of the function, here we are going to write the definition of function, and after that closing bracket of the class, and at the end semicolon. Okay, so this is the defining a member function. See here, not declaring, defining the member function inside the class. So it is a inline function. In this way we can define the function inside the class. Now see the example here, class student. In open curly bracket, it is a class body. So integer class and character name, these two are the private data members. Here any access specifier is not written, so by default it is a private. Now public void get data and public put data. Here is the definition of the function, that is get data. Into that function we have to get the roll number and name from the user. So cin, okay, console in, here we are taking the input from the user. So cin is the input function in the C++. Here roll number and name, we are taking input from the user, that is the student, roll number and name of the student. Now void put data, the definition of put data function is here. Cout, here cout function is used to display the output on the screen, that is the roll number and name, which is given by the student. So these are the definition of the function, and these two member functions are defined inside the class. Why inside the class? Because the end of the class is here, and inside the class here we are defining the member function. Okay, so let me see the example. So this is the Turbo C++ editor. Now we are going to create a new file. First save that file. So we are written here example. So eg class object dot, the extension is cpp. Okay. Now this is your program name. Now write the program, that is a hash include iostream.h, enter. Here we are going to define a class. Class student. See here, class is a keyword, so it is in a white color, class student. Now we can write here access specifier, that is private, or by default it is a private, so directly integer roll number. Now character name having 10 letters, that is it is a array of a character. Now public, it is a access specifier. See here again it is a keyword, public is a keyword. Now here void get data is the member function. So cin, we are taking input from the user, that is student. So cin roll number, again we have to take the name. So semicolon. Here end of the function definition, get data. Now void, also we can write the put data or display also. So we are displaying, so cout, here roll number and name of the student. Now it is a closing of the put data function, and now this is the closing of the class. Now see here, we have to write the main function. So our class name is a student, and if you want to create object of that class, so we have to write the class name. After that, what object name, that is we are creating here S as a object. Now if you want to access the data members of the class, so write object name dot that function name, that is a get what data, and S dot put data semicolon, here again semicolon, enter. See here, now we are going to write the program to explain the class and object. So here we have created one new file, that is an example of class and object dot cpp. Now see here, first hash include iostream dot h. After that, here we are going to write the class. So class is in white color. Why? Because it is a keyword. So class student, here is the starting of the class. Here we are not writing any access modifier, so by default it is a private. So integer roll number and character name. Is a character array having 10 size. Now public, again public is a keyword. Here we are going to define the function, that is a void get data. Here we are writing the definition of that get data. In this we are taking input from the user, so we are going to use the cin, that is console inout. So we are taking the input, that is a roll number and name from the user. So it is the end of this member function. Now we can write here again another member function, that is a put data, to display the name and roll number. So we are going to use here cout roll number and name. Now this is the end of the put data function. Now see here, it is the end of the class student. See here, class student is a class name, class is a keyword, student is a class name. Here these are the member, data member. This is the private section by default. Now it is a public area. Here these two member functions are a public, and we are writing the definition of this function inside the class. This is the end of the curly bracket, that is the end of the class, and semicolon. Now we have to write the main function. So void main. Here we are going to create object. So what is the syntax to create an object? Write a class name, that is student, and name of object, that is s. And if you want to access the member functions or data member of the class by using the object, so write the object name dot the member function, that is a get data. Now s dot put data. Now we are going to compile this program. So it is a compiled successfully. Before that I am saving this program. So see here, there is no any warning or errors. Now run this program. So we have to write here roll number, suppose 10, and name XY. So see here, we are including again conio.h. Why? Because we want to use getCH function here, which is used to display the output on the screen. Again we want to use the clear screen, okay, which is clear the screen of the output screen. Again alt run. Now here we are going to write the roll number, that is a 10, and name, suppose PQR. Now is showing the 10 and PQR as a output. Okay, so this is the simple program of class and object. So here we can use what? NDL. For what purpose? To displaying the next line. Here again NDL. Here also we can write the roll number and what? Name. Here compile. So we have seen the example of how to write the class and how to define the member functions inside the class. Now we will see the second, that is outside the class, means how to define the function outside the class. A member function of a class can also be defined outside the class. It requires the function declaration to be provided inside the class definition. Means if you want to define the function outside the class, first we have to declare that function inside the class. Okay, so the member function in C++ is declared inside the class like a normal function. This declaration informs the compiler that the function is a member of the class and that it has been defined outside the class. Why this is? Because if we declare the function inside the class, means the compiler understands that this function is the member of this class, and after declaring that member function inside the class, we can define that function outside the class. After a member function is declared inside, it may be defined outside in the program. The definition of a member function outside the class in C++ differ from normal function definition, as the function name in the function header is preceded by the class name and the scope resolution operator. So see here, the body of the function is same, okay, because logic is same. What is the main difference? See here, if you want to define a member function inside the class, there is no need of declaration of that function anywhere. Right, just write the function name and inside the bracket you can write the body of the function. But when we want to define the function outside the class, first we have to declare that function inside the class, and after that outside the class, first we have to write the return type of that function, then class name of that function, scope resolution operator, and function name, and after that we can write the body of the function. So see here the syntax, so you can easily understand what I mean to say, that the return type, class name, scope resolution operator, function name, argument list, it is optional argument list, and body of the function. So see here just difference here. It is also previous example. Class student, integer, roll number, character name, these both are the private data members. Now public get data and display data is the member function. Now it is a declared here. It is a prototype of a function, that is a data type and name of the function, and argument list, it is optional. Okay, so in the previous, that is a when we are defining the class, when we are defining the function inside the class, just we are writing the body of the class here. Okay, but now this is the defining the class outside the, defining the function outside the class. So this is just declaration of these two functions, that is a prototype of that function. Here the end of the class student, because semicolon is here. After that, now we are defining this function like that, like this, void is a data type. Now student is a, see here, class name. Void, that is a data type, student is a class name, scope resolution operator, and now get data is the function name. And this is the body of the function, same like a previous example, that is CN, roll number and name. See here what is the important data type, after that class name, scope resolution operator, and then the function name. Again void student, scope resolution operator, display. Now body of the function is here. And after that, now we are going to write the main function, that is a void main. Okay, this is the defining the function outside the class, that is outside the class. Now we will see the nesting of member functions. We can call member function from another class member function. This is called as a nesting of a member function, just like a nested if else. If we call any member function from the another class member function, it is known as a nesting member function. So see here, nesting a member function example, include iostream.h. Now class number pairs, this is the class name, number pairs. Now these are the privately declared the variable, that is number 1 and number 2, having the data type integer. These are the private. Why private? Because by default it is a private. Now void read, it is a member function of the number pair class. Void read, cout, what? Enter first name. Okay, enter first name. Now see in number 1. Now enter second number. Here number 2. Here we are taking the input from the user, that is number 1 and number 2. Now we have to check which number is the largest. So integer max, it is another function. The definition of function is here. If number 1 is greater than number 2, it will return the number 1, that is the largest number, and else it will return the second number. So now nesting of member function, see here, void show cout maximum. Now we require the max number, so we are using the max function. Okay, now see here, void main, number pairs, that is a class name, n1 is the object of number pairs class. Now n1 dot read, what will happen when read function is called? The function, our program flow goes here. Now here what, user enter the number 1 and number 2. Okay, user enter 2 numbers and it will come here again. Now n1 dot show max, now the program flow is goes here, that is a void show max. In that maximum equal to, now this max function is called inside the show max function. Now after calling this max function, the program flow goes here. Now it will check both that numbers, it will return which is the max number to this function, and it will display the output. See here, enter the first name, user entered the 20, now he entered the 90. After that in the max function it will check which number is greatest. So 90 is the largest number, so it will display the maximum equal to 90. Here what is the nesting? Max is a member function and it is called inside the other member function, that is a show max. So it is known as a nesting of member function. Okay. Now we will see the memory allocation of a object. So once we define class, it will not allocate memory space for the data members of the class. The memory allocation for the data member of the class is performed separately each time when an object of a class is created. Means if we think that when we create an class, at that time compiler can allocate the memory space, but it is not done in the C++. After declaring the class, when we create the object of that class, then and then only memory will be allocated. When an object of a class is created or declared, some amount of memory is allocated to it. The amount of memory allocated to an object is equal to amount of memory required by the data members of that class. So when object of the class is created, after that the memory is allocated to that object. So how much memory or what amount of memory is allocated to that object? So see here, into that class there are some data members. Suppose there are two data members, that is a roll number and name. So roll number is an integer, so it requires the 4 byte, and name is a character array, so it requires the 10 bytes. So 10 and 4, that is a 14 bytes are allocated to that object. So amount of memory allocated to the object is equal to the amount of memory required for that data members of the class. The member function of a class are shared by the all three objects, that is object 1, object 2 and object 3, and each object has its own copy of a data members of a class. Once the object of a class is created, it needs to be initialized with the valid values before it is used in the program. So data members of the class shared by the all three objects means what? When we declare any class, there are some data members and also member functions, but that all member functions are shared with the all objects, but data members has the different copy with that object. Initialization of the object at the time of declaration is done with the help of a special member function and called as the constructor. So we will see constructor in the next into this the unit. So to initialize the object we require the constructor. When an object is no longer needed, the memory is allocated to the object need to be released. Means when object is created, memory is allocated, and to initialize that memory we require the constructor. And after using this object, we want to release that memory. So for that purpose we are going to use the destructor. So constructor and destructor are the special functions which are used to allocate and deallocate the memory respectively. Now see here the diagram. Here member functions are get data and show data. These are shared between object 1, object 2 and object 3. But data members have the separate memory location because here we have to store the value. But member function which are only used to operate or perform operation on this data. So object 1, object 2 and object 3 are the three objects of a class, and it has the three copies of the data members, but it share the single member functions, that is get data and show data. This is the memory allocation of a object. So in this session we have seen the defining data members and member functions, how to define member function inside the class, how to define member function outside the class, and nesting member functions, as well as memory allocation of the objects. So write the assignment question for this session. Write and explain how to define member function inside the class as well as outside the class with syntax and example. I will repeat the question. Explain with example defining member function inside and outside the class. Here you have to write this inside the class definition, outside the class definition, write the syntax as well as the example.